Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do to get started on our job is to safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. After that, remove all of your lug nuts and then remove the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off of here, we have a nice clear view of our tie rod ends. Let's go ahead and spray down this area with some penetrant spray. This is going to help remove everything. The next thing that I like to do is remove the sleeve right here. To do that, I'm going to have to loosen up my 2 pinch bolts right along there. We can loosen these up, and then we'll be able to spin this to de-adjust the tie rods until they come apart. Now that we've got both those bolts free, the next thing that I want to do is grab onto this sleeve right here, and I just want to break it free. You want to make sure you use some penetrant on this. I'm going to work it back and forth. Once it's free, we can continue. Let's continue on to removing the inner tie rod end nut. Obviously, there's going to be a cotter pin on that. Go ahead and take it right off, and then remove the nut. Easy peasy. Let's use our 18mm socket. Loosen this up. Continue on with a pickle fork and a hammer and separate the joint. Just going to go right in between the two arms here. Remove that nut. Now that we have that broken free, let's continue on by removing the sleeve completely. That way there we can retime it once we replace the inner tie rod end. I'm just going to turn this and I'm going to count the amount of threads it takes to remove it. 1. All right. There's the inner tie rod end, and here's our sleeve. Inspect your sleeve, make sure it's still in workable condition. We can reuse this, and let's replace the inner tie rod end. All right, now it's going to be time to install our brand new inner tie rod end. To do that, I want to use some copper never sees. I'm going to go along the threaded area here, and then on the outer tie rod end as well. I'll take my sleeve, started on the outer tie rod end, just a couple threads here. And now I'll take my inner tie rod end. I'm going to start that in just a couple threads, the same amount, and then we can continue on by screwing it all together. Okay, now that we have it started, the same amount of threads on each tie rod end, we can continue on by tightening this right here. The reason why we wanted to make sure we do the same amount on both tie rod ends is so that the sleeve is properly timed. We're going to continue on by screwing this in the same amount of threads as it took to remove it. Get this nut off of here. Now we're going to slide this into the center link. Start the nut on there. Let's torque this to 46 foot-pounds. All right. Now you just want to line up the slots of your nut to the hole in the stud. If it isn't, continue tightening it till it is, and then put in your locking cotter pin. Okay, before we go ahead and snug up our tie rod adjustment sleeve here, the next thing that we want to do is ensure that our steering wheel is straight. We're going to come back down here, and we're going to try to make sure that our rotor is sitting pretty much parallel to the body of the vehicle itself. If it looks like it's towed out, meaning the front side of it's kind of facing out and away from the vehicle, you're just going to turn this adjustment sleeve counterclockwise. If it seems like it's turned too far in, turn it clockwise. We're going to continue on to making sure that we have the tie rods parallel to the actual knuckle here. You want to make sure that it's not sitting all crooked and binding up that ball joint, and then all the way on the inner as well. You want to make sure that that's parallel to the center link. All right, now that we have it lined up, let's continue on with our clamps. When we put on the clamps, you can see that you have this slot along the adjustment sleeve itself. You want to make sure that you don't have your clamps lined up with that like this. You want to make sure that you have it in the opposite position, just like that, and then of course make sure that it doesn't touch up against anything while you're steering. Let's double check, make sure they're nice and snug. Perfect. Let's get our tire up on here. Start on all your lug nuts, snug them up, and then we'll torque them. Okay, once you have them all started on there, go ahead and get your wheels safely back on the ground, and then we'll torque all of the lug nuts to 120 foot-pounds. torqued. All right, we got the truck all back together. What's left to do now? Safely take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop.